Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet today, Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2024. Item number one is apologies for absence. Mr. Bradbury, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Leader. We have one apology from Councillor Robert Pritchard.
Item two, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Agenda item 3 is decision notice for the meeting held on the 21st of February 2024. Is it your wish that I sign that as a correct record of that meeting? That is unanimous. Item number 4 is Leaders' Update, and I do hope I don't steal too much of the Deputy Leader's thunder, but I do enjoy doing so, be prepared for a repeat. Good morning. Welcome to today's Cabinet. First, we start the meeting with some good news for children, their parents, and people who work with them. On the 1st of March, 9 out of 10 parents learned they have been allocated their first choice secondary school in Staffordshire, well above both the national and regional average. In fact, nearly 99% have been allocated one of their top 3 preferred schools, which is amazing given the increasing demand for places. A huge thanks goes to our admissions team who've been working so hard behind the scenes to achieve this success story, and indeed Councillor Price, thank you for all your efforts. Staying with young people, we want to be sure that every youngster gets the best start in life. Attracting and keeping the best people to support them is key to this. We are therefore delighted that Staffordshire has been selected to join a national pilot to encourage people to pursue a career in early years and childcare. It means that people who start a job in childcare or return to the profession will be eligible for a payment of up to £1,000. Staffordshire is one of 20 areas across the country that has been selected to take part in this pilot, which will run from April until December. People can find out more information and how to apply on their website. And Councillor Sutton, I know you have a lot of new apprentices coming to your directorate, and it's great to see them establishing themselves within children's services. And thank you to Neelim for all your efforts as well on that. Absolutely brilliant. There is also support available for eligible parents and carers with our holidays, activity and food scheme running once again in the Easter holidays. Bookings are open for the County Council administered scheme, which is available to over 23,000 eligible children between 5 and 16 on benefits-related free school meals. I need to say that the right way in order for it to make sense. The programme includes physical play, fun activities, nutritional advice and a healthy hot meal where possible. There are over 15,000 places available, so we would encourage people to find out more if they think they may be eligible. Moving on to highways and transport, as a county council we have committed to spending an extra £50 million, which will be invested in maintaining and improving Staffordshire highways over the next 3 years. This is alongside a total of £53 million being spent on a range of major projects, vital road improvements and general road maintenance in the years 2024 and 2025. We'll hear more detail about this later in the meeting. We know good roads are important, but making sure our towns, villages and communities are also well connected is important for this council too. That's why it's great to hear that Staffordshire has secured a huge funding boost for local transport projects which will span a 7-year period. The local transport fund deal will see the County Council allocated nearly £286 million from 25-26 from a national fund of £4.7 billion. To mark the announcement, there was also a ministerial visit to the Branston interchange site where the County Council is already carrying out a major improvement scheme. We've also had the opportunity to highlight at a national level the vision for major improvements, economic growth and decarbonisation along the A50-A500 corridor. Finally, before turning to today's agenda, there was yet more good news for Staffordshire as the We Are Staffordshire team when it was announced that the County Council our county has been chosen by the City Nation Place to host its UK conference. The event will bring together leaders to focus on how to build place attractiveness and reputation and build pride, attract visitors, talent and investment. The event will be held at Lichfield Cathedral, which I'm absolutely delighted about. Despite some of the feedback we get from some of the commentators on some of the websites, Lichfield is a wonderful city, really beautiful, and the cathedral is an absolute jewel in the Staffordshire crown, our only cathedral, and I'm really pleased that the meeting is being held there in September. This was after a successful bid to host the event alongside Lichfield District Council and the cathedral. and thank you to Lichfield District Council for putting their shoulder to that wheel. Now turning to today's agenda, we've got agenda item 5, which is minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 6th of March. Can I sign that as a correct record?
Agreed.
Agenda item 6, Staffordshire means back to business. It's a verbal report brought by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Not a single thing that I had to draw a line through there, so thank you for that, for once. We've got a packed agenda, so I'm going to keep the update relatively brief today, so that we can get through everything else that we need to. So, firstly, I always like to provide an update for Cabinet on the number of universal credit claimants in the county. Last month saw an increase from 2.8% to 3% in our universal credit claimant count, which compares to an average for the West Midlands of 5%. And an average for England of 3.9%. So, as we see consistently, the rates of universal credit claimants in Staffordshire are considerably lower than the regional and national averages. Within that, the claimant count for young people increased from 4.6 to 4.8% versus a rate of 5.3% in England and 7.1% across the region. I won't reprise the details about the work that we do to connect people with the many jobs that are available in Staffordshire, as you're all aware of that, but that work continues to be a high priority for us. There are two areas that I'll update on today. The first is briefly regarding the local enterprise partnership. We have an item on the agenda later today about the joint governance of the successors to the local enterprise partnership after government's decision that those authorities would be taken on by top-tier local authorities in Staffordshire, that is Staffordshire County Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council. But in addition to that, colleagues, I can confirm that Staffordshire as a whole, so Stoke-on-Trent and the County of Staffordshire, will be creating a joint economic strategy to align with our new responsibilities that we've taken over from the LEP, which will be ready by September. So that, for the first time in quite some years, I'm not sure if it's ever been done before, will be a strategy that will encompass the whole of our geography, which I think is very welcome. Certainly businesses don't really look at local authority boundaries between the city and the county when they're considering how they do things. So it's good that we're in a position to do that. The other thing that I will highlight is the excellent Enjoy Staffordshire Tourism and Good Food Awards, which I did wonder whether you might have mentioned in your remarks, because I think you were there, Leader.
I was, yeah.
A tough gig, and thank you for taking it on. I think the Chief Executive may have been there as well. And it's good to have that level of support for our tourism industry visibly in the room. So I just wanted to highlight one or two of the winners there, and particularly in the outstanding contribution to tourism category, the Evans family, who own Denstone Hall Cafe and Farm Shop, which is a huge asset in the county, and where coincidentally I popped in yesterday on my way back from visiting Alton Towers, one of our other great tourism assets. They're a great example of diversification, starting as a farming family and then expanding into what is now one of the leading farm shops in the entire country, with a national reputation recognised in that award. I'd also like to say very well done to the Flintlock at Cheddleton and the Duncombe Arms, who also picked up awards. We have so these are 2 of 7 restaurants in the county that are now recognised in the world-renowned Michelin Guide, highlighting the growing reputation of Staffordshire as a foodie destination. In total, we had 20 award winners, and 14 of those will now go on to represent the county in the Visit England Awards for Excellence, which are held in Liverpool in June. And we'll all keep our fingers crossed for some national awards there. So that is the sum total of the update this month. It is shorter than usual, but as I said a moment ago, it's a packed agenda. So that is the update.
Thank you, Councillor White, and I note in the BBC website that inflation's fallen again today to 3.4%, so that's continuing progress on that challenge, which obviously affects your portfolio and others significantly, so more good news. Anybody else got any points? Nobody's indicating. Agenda item 7 is capital programme for schools. Cabinet Member for Education and Send, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, everyone. So maintaining our schools and creating an environment that encourages learning is crucial for our children to thrive. This year we're investing nearly £57 million in Staffordshire schools for upkeep and improvements. The funds will also be used to make schools more energy efficient, directly contributing to the County Council's goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions, and I'm sure that will please Councillor Tagg. Some of this funding will also be used to deliver new school places and improve existing provision in schools for pupils with special educational needs and disabilities. This is to ensure children and young people, irrespective of background, can achieve a good education that enables them to fulfil their potential. So since 2017, the County Council has invested the Government School Condition Allocation Grant to carry out over 600 planned maintenance projects. More than 175 projects specifically focused on reducing our carbon footprint. Around 300 projects that directly address property issues that schools themselves have considered a priority. So a total of £56 million will be spent on building new schools and maintaining and improving existing ones in Staffordshire over the coming year. More than £14 million will also be allocated to improve existing provision for pupils with SEND, while more than £32 million will be spent on building brand new schools over the next 3 years to accommodate new housing developments. These schools include new primary schools in Stafford, Tamworth, East Staffordshire and Lichfield, with an estimated £26.5 million new secondary school to be built in Stafford. It is also important to plan for the future and ensure we are building schools that mitigate the rise in demand for school places. Our forward planning has ensured that the overwhelming majority of parents are consistently allocated one of their top choice secondary or primary schools. And as mentioned by the leader earlier, this year saw more than 90% of parents allocated their first choice secondary school, with 99% allocated one of their top 3 schools. The county also consistently achieves similar figures for primary school admissions. In addition to our maintenance and improvement programme, since 2014 we've opened 13 new schools funded by basic needs and S106 contributions, including the John Taylor Free School, which was the first secondary school to be opened in Staffordshire for over 25 years. The St Leonard's relocation expansion at the former Kingston Centre and the Anna Seward 1 form entry school in Lichfield both opened in September last year. We also have 3 primary schools currently under construction, ready for opening in September this year: Beaconfield Primary and Nursery in Stafford, the Garden Village Primary Academy and Dunstall Park Primary School, both in Tamworth. And we're also in the process of procuring and delivering a further 2 form entry primary schools for September next year: Burleyfields West in Stafford and St John's Grange in Lichfield. And during this period, we will also carry out major projects to refurb and expand a further 50 schools. An excellent track record, you'll all agree. I'm pleased to say that the team that support this work as well do an absolutely outstanding job. And every project that we've done has also been done 2 times as well. And you did mention inflation earlier. That does have a significant impact on the work that we try and do to build these new schools. To see that inflation rate has come down is also really good news too. But happy to take any questions, and then I'll read the recommendations out, Leader.
Nobody's indicating, Councillor Price, but I just wanted to make a point for the record, which is that sometimes where in districts and borough areas where new housing goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean a new school will be immediately imminent. Your department has a very, very good handle on the number of children that are going to need education places, in particular because the registrar tells you that there's been a number of births and we're going to need a certain number of school places. So when people do say, well, there's a new housing estate going up, where's the school? you're on top of it, and I just want to reassure people that might be watching this and people across Staffordshire that they should be confident that we have the right number of school places for the numbers of children that we've got growing up in Staffordshire. Councillor Deville, you've indicated.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'll be very brief. What an excellent report. I think we've all agreed, Chairman, always that our children's future is the most important things that we discuss. And this programme and this report ticks all of the boxes, doesn't it? It determines and confirms the future educational development within Staffordshire. It confirms our commitment to energy efficiency, and I think the works that we're doing on energy efficiency within our schools are tremendous, and they're within this report. And it also confirms again that Staffordshire County Council are spending our money, our taxpayers' money, in exactly the right areas, and we're investing in our children's future. So, Chairman, I wholeheartedly thank Councillor Price for bringing this report and support the report. It's excellent.
Councillor White.
Yeah, just briefly as well, but I do think this item justifies spending a few moments just considering it. It is an excellent piece of work, and it's something that's been very long in the making, hasn't it? We've been working very hard for many years to be in a position where we are consistently delivering 99% of parents getting one of their first preferences of school, and I think it's above 90% who get their absolute first preference. And the thing that I would say for anybody who sort of looks at that and thinks, fair enough, that's what I'd expect them to do, perhaps sort of cast your eyes a little bit further afield and look at other parts of the country and their experiences where far fewer children have the benefit of going to the school that their parents are most confident is right for them. This is a massive achievement for Staffordshire and one that we've sustained over many years. And I'm quite confident, reading this report, that we will continue to sustain. It's a balance, because you don't want too many school places and having schools competing to fill those classrooms. You've got to get it just right, and we've got that track record here. So thank you for this report, which evidences that we will continue to do that.
Councillor Price, if you can sum up and take us to the recommendations, please.
Yeah, no, thank you for those words. So, the recommendations are, A, we approve the school capital programme for 24-25 investment of proposals set out in the supporting appendices. B, authorises the Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets to monitor progress and make any necessary in-year alterations in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. And C, delegate authority to the Chief Executive and Director of Corporate Services to enter contracts for projects in the capital programme which has a value of £2 million or above. Other contract awards and modifications will be in accordance with the Council's procurement regulations. Thank you, Leader.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Agenda item 8, Highways and Transport Programme 24-25 to 26-27. Brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader, and I'm happy to bring this report to Cabinet today. So, Staffordshire's huge road network is vital for keeping our county connected and its residents and businesses on the move. We know that good roads are extremely important to our residents. So, over the next 3 financial years, the County Council is planning to carry out at least an extra £50 million worth of repairs with an investment from the County Council and essential maintenance to Staffordshire's roads on top of any grant given by government. This includes more road resurfacing schemes and getting potholes repaired quicker. The investment will enable 34 road reconstruction schemes to be carried out, including the resurfacing of junctions, roundabouts at key locations in our towns, 1.5 million square metres of preventative surface treatments and £2.75 million worth of work to repair highway drainage. This year we'll also see more than £53 million invested in a range of major projects, vital local improvements and general road maintenance. In January 2023, we were also successful in securing £19.8 million through the Levelling Up Fund for improvements to roads and bus and cycling routes in Staffordshire that will see investment and environmentally friendly buses and active travel between Stafford and Cannock, as well as significant investments around the A38 Branston interchange in Burton-on-Trent. However, we recognise there is always more to be done, and we continue to lobby central government for the money necessary to keep Staffordshire's roads in the condition we expect and ensure that communities and businesses can see the benefits. Staffordshire County Council's network is valued at over £7 billion, and we know that to ensure and keep this up to the right standard is very needed and wanted by our residents and our businesses. The way it is managed and maintained has a direct impact on the County Council's ability to deliver the vision of an innovative, ambitious and sustainable county, where everyone in the has the opportunity to prosper, be healthy and happy. The Highways and Transport Capital Grant Block funding is made up of two parts: highways maintenance, including bridges, and the integrated transport improvements. They are not ring-fenced, and precise allocation can be determined at a local level. In 23-24, these grants were enhanced through government funding via the 2023 Budget Pothole Fund and Prime Minister's Network North announcement. Capital funding is used to replace highways assets that have come to the end of their life and is generally provided through government grant. Additional capital funding for highways and transport comes from the County Council's own investment decisions, contributions and developers through 106 agreements or stakeholders and other bid arrangements. As the highways infrastructure is the largest and most visible asset Staffordshire County Council is responsible for, this includes over 6,200 kilometres of carriageways, 4,360 kilometres of footways and over 1,000 structures with more than 115,000 streetlights and illuminated signs. The local road network has an estimated gross replacement value of over £7 billion, the majority of value being within the key asset group of carriageways, footways and cycleways, structures, street lighting, traffic signals and drainage. Street lighting is managed through a long-term private finance initiative which runs until May 2028 and is outside of the scope of this report. Therefore, the challenge to us is managing our highways being a key challenge so that the public and our members have increased confidence in the fact that we are making sure that our highways are increasingly repaired and they are less fragile and more resilient. The Council has a number of statutory duties on its highways, such as Section 41 of the Highways Act and Section 16 of the Traffic Management Act. All these obligations must also be fulfilled and beyond the objectives of the Highways Infrastructure Asset Management Plan. In line with Staffordshire's Highways Infrastructure Asset Management Strategy, Policy and Plan, the authority is committed to an asset management approach encompassing the benefits of whole cost life cycle. This includes ensuring the most effective and efficient use of the available highway budget so the appropriate treatment is utilised at the right time, focused on preventative work and prioritising high-risk safety defects for repair. On table 2B below, you'll see there's an overview of the proposed allocation of capital funding across carriageways, drainage and footways from 2023 to 24 and onwards, based on the programme of works identified in Annex 1 to this paper. Over £26 million will be invested in major structural repairs of life-expired roads at the sites listed in Appendix 1A during this period. However, surface dressing has also been a time-proven solution to seal road surfaces, prevent water ingress and improve skid resistance of roads. Developments in materials and technology over recent years have seen a number of innovations that offer additional durability and customer care benefits that most members have been able to see out there on the highways, as well as significant savings in carbon production when compared to the replacement of surfacing. A list of sites that are proposed to receive the preventative carriageway treatment in 24-25 can be found in Appendix 1B. I remind all members at this point that when we are carrying out preventative treatments, the entire site is pre-patched, carrying out the repairs on all Category 3 areas on that area so that when it comes to the surface dressing, it is a smooth surface and gives us the best possible outcome. Highways drainage is provided to ensure that surface water is also removed from carriageways, footways and cycleways as quickly as possible. This is achieved through a combination of different maintenance and flooding structures, and much of the council's drainage infrastructure was installed when the roads were originally constructed, some back to the late 1800s or early 1900s. In recognition of the challenge of making sure that we keep our roads and remove the water as quickly as possible with this ageing drainage asset, the County Council is planning to invest £1.9 million in total over the next 3 financial years on drainage repairs targeted at locations where poor drainage is leading to premature road surface deterioration. We will also be carrying out works on both our structures, which includes bridges and also our footways, and working with Sustrans and other outside agencies to ensure that we can obtain funding for active travel. Before I go to the recommendations, open to questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. An extensive report, and I hope it gives people confidence that we are certainly tackling the work that needs to be done. There's always more in highways that needs to be done, but what we want to do is make sure that those works are done efficiently, effectively, and as Councillor DeVille would say, if he got the opportunity, right first time. I think that's the most important thing. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd like to welcome particularly some of the structural maintenance schemes. I think looking at Newcastle Borough, there's 3 in there which come to, I believe, £1.3 million investment over the next year, particularly Brook Lane and Highland, which are in my division, but also the lower Milehouse Lane near Morrison's Junction, which has been a bit of a bugbear for potholes and a very poor road service. So I think just from my point of view, there are 3 schemes there, which I'm sure are echoed across the county, that are well needed and will show a vast improvement. 2 of those are on links through to our town centre, which are well-used roads and ones which create the most complaints with them being in a poor state. So really welcome that investment in Newcastle and across the borough as set out in these proposals. Thank you.
Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr Williams, for bringing the report. And you're right, Councillor Williams. Our roads are essential to all of us. You know, we all use them to get to work. We use them to get to the doctors or hospital appointments. We use them all the time for taking children and grandchildren to school. So we get the importance of our highways. We also get, Chairman, that we have to improve our highways. Every time you switch the TV on or pick a newspaper up, you're talking about the state of roads across our country. We absolutely get it. And these programmes, Chairman, of resurfacing, surface dressing, are programmes of getting our potholes repaired quicker, and the drainage improvement proposals. These are all improvements that our Staffordshire taxpayers will see. These are benefits that they will absolutely see. But there's no complacency whatsoever, Chairman. We know that we've got to improve in these areas, and there's no complacency at all in, as usual, Staffordshire taxpayers getting very best value for money. And you're right, Chairman, our operators getting the works done right first time. We're on to it, we get it, that's exactly what we're doing, and I think this, Councillor Williams, is the crux of this excellent report.
Councillor Parry.
I think as a Cabinet, we spend more time talking about this issue, about our highways, than any other. And yet, 70% of what we spend in this council is not spent on highways, it's spent on people in care who need our support. The thing is, though, highways and our highway infrastructure and our network is the one thing that we do as a county council that affects every citizen. If you're a newborn baby in a pram being pushed along a crumbling footpath, it's affecting your ride. As it is affecting the ride of people driving to work, students getting to their place of education. Everybody, at some point, uses a footpath, uses a road, uses a bridge, enjoys the lighting of our highways, etc., etc. It's the one thing that does all of that. And what this paper this morning says to us, and expresses it really, really well, is the insatiable demand that our highways have in terms of repair, renewal, and capital investment and also the competing demands it has. You know, we often just think about the potholes that are being complained about or the gullies not being emptied, but the breadth and depth of our highways asset or liability, whichever way you want to look at it, is huge, you know, from structures, from bridges to footpaths to roads, and the diversity of our network, you know, of country roads that were probably built by William the Conqueror, still being maintained today by us, and to our, you know, our roads that links towns together and provide commuter pathways and transportation pathways. It's a huge challenge. And what this report says, all of those competing demands with a finite amount of resources, despite the fact we're putting a £50 million package together and have been introducing large amounts of capital over the last 10 years from cabinet approval, large amounts of capital, there are still that demand that is unmet. So what do we have to do? We have to prioritise. We have competing demands. We know you want your pothole fixed, but over there that footpath needs repairing, that drainage system needs sorting. So this report does it for us. This report says, in a logical, methodological, rational way, how are we going to carve up what we have to spend on highways in a way that's going to do the most good, that's going to benefit most people, that's going to keep our highway system, our network, functioning and working properly. And yes, we can't do everything. Yes, this is the wrong time of year. I find the post-Christmas period is my period when I spend most of my time apologising and asking people to bear with us and asking people to have some patience and asking people, please report it, and we're doing our best to get there. But it's going to take some months for us to get over the worst weather that we've had for 130 years in terms of the water table in Staffordshire and the effect that that's having on our network as well as everything else. And the damage that's been done through the intensity of and prolonged nature of the rain that we've been suffering. It will take time to sort that out. But the cavalry is coming, in a sense. This is a plan for the new financial year, which has significantly more resources involved and significant changes in the strategy and approach and the prioritisation that we're taking, that I'm confident, I'm sure Cabinet is confident, because hopefully we're going to approve this morning, will actually deliver a change, will actually deliver a noticeable change over the summer months and throughout the new financial year that's about to happen. So grateful for the report, grateful for Cabinet colleagues' insistence and persistence and endless heated arguments about all of this that I think is producing, you know, a good strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Well said indeed. And it is right to point out that the amount of additional money that this authority is putting into this programme, we talk about significant resources, it's money that we're putting in, it dwarfs the amount that we're getting from the HS2 windfall over the next couple of years. There's been big sums talked about for HS2 windfall, 248 million and numbers like that. But we're only seeing 3.1 million this year and the next. And we're putting in tens of millions of additional money into this, which is tremendous. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, everyone. I certainly welcome this report from Councillor Williams, particularly around the investment that's coming forward. I'd like to mention what's going on at the A38 Branston interchange. I personally live along the A38, so I know the congestion that can happen with traffic trying to exit at Branston to get into that part of Burton, or in fact to go down to John Taylor School and to Branston Locks and to the rugby club. So the actual facility of having a slip road there will relieve the congestion and is really welcome. And it will certainly help with the congestion that we see on the rest of the A38. So I really welcome this investment that's going forward in that part of Staffordshire. Thank you, Leader.
Nobody else is indicating, Councillor Williams, so if you could sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's very important, and as Councillor Parry already said, we do spend a lot of time talking about highways because this Cabinet, from the Leader down, is very, very keen on ensuring that we both provide the best possible outcomes for our residents, but also we do it in a value for money. And I think that's really important that we do that, and I think it's really important that this Cabinet really does make sure that we're doing it in the right way. I also agree with the fact of the investment is really, really welcome, and it will be one of those things where we will be able to do more than we were able to do previously, and I am committed to making sure that our asset is improved at all times. Therefore, I'm going to recommend to Cabinet that Cabinet considers the report and approves the Highway and Transport Capital Investment Proposal set out in its supporting appendices, noting that at a time of writing, the allocations from the Department of Transport have still not been provided. B, approves the additional investment of £30 million by the County Council into highway maintenance to be delivered over the period from 25-26 to 26-27. C, approves progression of the programme of developer-funded S278, S111 highway improvement projects and delegates authority to the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills to agree the details of the works, agreements and authorise the contracts for works to be entered into. And D, the Assistant Director for Highways and the Built County Monitors progress of the overall programme and is given delegated authority to make any in-year alterations and additions to the programme in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transportation. I so move, Chairman.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That's unanimous. Agenda item 9 is Climate Change Strategic Development Framework Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. The first Climate Change Strategic Framework was published in 2021 and set out the Council's approach for achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And it's one of the documents that supports our rolling 5-year climate change action plan, which identifies those key actions for reducing carbon emissions. And we've seen, as we saw at Cabinet before Christmas, a reduction in the County Council's carbon emissions by 50% since 2019, which is a great achievement. However, we know we still have a long way to go to achieve net zero overall and also to create a climate resilient county. So the revised Climate Change Strategic Development Plan before us today outlines our priorities for achieving our net zero ambitions and how to better prepare ourselves and the local communities we serve for the changing climate. The framework sets out our principle for achieving net zero and also building that resilience which I talked about with a number of key measures, ensuring all council service areas understand the need to reduce carbon emissions and to consider and mitigate the risks of climate change, being innovative and aspirational and positive, taking a positive leading role and leading by example, and embracing the opportunities that may come out of the climate change agenda. And I think we've got a proud record to show on that so far. Empowering our staff and members to suggest solutions and commit to delivering the net zero target, and have transparent processes to make the best use of resources that we have and get them channeled into our aspirations for climate reduction. So our delivery approach is ensuring that our approach is based on robust data with the climate impacts considered across the organisation. Priorities where to focus our efforts on and activities where they have the most effective control and influence towards our goals, and make sure all internal strategies and policies reflect our climate change visions. And as we see with every Cabinet agenda that comes to us here now, we have those climate change implications. And we've already seen of all the items that have come forward already this morning, they have a climate change implication. And ensuring any potential impacts on climate and environment are considered and reflected in those decisions which we take, whether that's at Cabinet, whether that's at SLT, whether that's with our partners through the Sustainability Board. And one of the key parts of the framework is that continued working with partners, and we've taken a leading role in the Staffordshire Sustainability Board to work with our partners on our goals for climate change and theirs. And also we've led our local communities' drive towards reducing carbon emissions through our members' Climate Change Action Fund, which has seen a number of improvements across the board and is growing from strength to strength every year, and really is a sort of communications tool as well out with our residents and with our community groups to show what we can achieve and how we can help them to achieve their climate goals. So we're also encouraging the transition to a green economy within Staffordshire. And we saw at our last Cabinet meeting the Green Solutions item that was brought by the Deputy Leader, which is helping businesses deliver obviously the carbon emissions through providing business pilot for energy advice services. So I'm really pleased to recommend today this updated strategy, our climate change strategic development framework. I'm willing to take any questions before or comments before I read the recommendations, Leader.
Thank you. Nobody's indicating. I did the climate change training last week. Thank you very much indeed. It was well attended by members. I think a good proportion of the members have now undertaken that climate change training, so thank you for laying that on. I know that the climate change agenda is very, very close to the heart of quite a few of our members, and I know that they give you a reasonably robust time from time to time, Councillor Tagg, making sure that we are on it, as they say. But this indicates what great work you're doing with your team to take this thing forward. Nobody else is indicating. Back to you, Councillor Tagg.
I think you're right there about our members. I think that training session was tailored towards a in-the-room session. We did have trouble with some of the online sort of training modules. I think getting in the room and actually doing a training session for a group of members really is the best way to go. And of course, the enthusiasm that comes forward from that you've just touched on, Leader, I think is really good. And this plan, when we do have people saying, what's your plans, where are your plans, how are you measuring yourself, this is a key document that helps us to build that action plan every year and to deliver on that through the actions that are in it. So I'm quite pleased to move the recommendations, which are A, note and approves the updated climate change strategic development framework. B, notes that the revised climate change development framework highlights the importance of considering climate change mitigation and adaptation in combination. And C, notes the climate change action plan is being refreshed to incorporate carbon reduction initiatives and building climate change resilience across all our services. And of course, in the autumn, we do get our update on the last year and also our refreshed climate change action plan to take us through our next period on our goal to get to net zero by 2050. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item number 10 is Staffordshire County Council Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Strategy and Levy Update. Try and say that fast. It's brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport and Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. That's Councillor Williams and Councillor Tagg, respectively.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, yet again, I'm very happy to bring this report to Cabinet today. The Department of Transport has this week confirmed its allocation to this County Council circa £4.6 million capital funding to enable the private sector to deliver public electric vehicle charging infrastructure here in Staffordshire. While it is not the County Council's role to install and maintain the charging network, as the Highways Authority and major land and asset owner, as well as our commitment to achieving net zero, we do have an important coordinating and facilitation role. This funding will facilitate the private sector to improve accessibility of EV infrastructure for Staffordshire residents and deliver our public electric vehicle charging infrastructure strategy as approved by Cabinet in January last year. I have agreed in principle to collaborate on a cross-local authority application through joining a local authority consortium led by Midlands Connect. It is anticipated that a consortium approach will lead to a greater scale and private sector investment, achieving greater value. Through engagement and collaboration with all districts and borough councils to provide a consistent approach to EV rollout across Staffordshire, up to 70 off-street locations will be included alongside on-street charging locations where appropriate. In accepting the £4.6 million DFT capital allocation, an estimated £10 to £15 million of match-funded investment across Staffordshire could be delivered, helping to contribute towards achieving the goals of 5,140 electrical vehicle charge point sockets by 2030. Over to you.
Thank you. I really support this. I think I'd also like to just emphasise the partnership working through the Sustainability Board on this. All districts have signed up to be part of this strategy. Again, helping to facilitate the rollout of electric vehicles. I think districts and boroughs do have a role using their land, and as Councillor Williams pointed out, the off-street parking EV options are being pursued across each of the districts. And only yesterday at Newcastle Borough, we agreed a cabinet item for our new car park, Castle Car Park, which will have up to 40 chargeable points on the ground floor there. So that's helping towards us to achieve our strategy. But I think it also sets out, if you do look at the way we're going to be investing this Levi funding, which is the funding we're getting in partnership with across the West Midlands, is that it brings those private contractors in and it gives them the lead to go out there and obviously roll out this network. And I think when we come to the on-street, which is going to be the difficult part, we're beginning to make some headway in that and get that on the agenda, and also get the private sector interested in delivering that, which is all what part of this funding is about. And so really endorse this paper and the update being provided.
Councillor Parry.
Thank you. And welcome a really interesting paper that does set out, if you like, the role of this council in partnership with other organisations in facilitating, double underlined, facilitating the implementation, the rollout of increased infrastructure for EV charging points. I think we noticed, don't we, as we drive around the county and the country, of how these things are starting to grow now, in places that you see them popping up, you know, in small retail parks and motorway service areas where you see the expansion into larger vehicle charging points, etc. But no one's going to sell an electric car. They ain't going to sell one to me unless I'm convinced that I can get around efficiently and conveniently, and therefore have sufficient charging points that will allow me to do that. So the demand, in a sense, puts the onus upon manufacturers of EV to ensure that they're working to ensure that there's a charging infrastructure. And we must be clear, I think, you know, with the public sector, we're here to help to facilitate, to ensure that the public sector plays its part, in a sense, in providing opportunity to set up charging points, etc., but not take the responsibility for the lack of them, the distribution of them, the location of them, the efficiency of them, etc. So these will be the new fuel stations of the future, and it is therefore those companies involved in either the provision of energy for cars or the provision of the cars themselves to ensure that they've got this covered. And I just wanted to make it clear, as I do every time this is mentioned, because I know where it ends up if we don't. We end up holding the baby, and it's not for us to do that. Our job is, as we've said in this paper, I think it's clear in the paper, I just want to make it verbally unmistakable for the exclusion of any doubt that this is a facilitation role for us.
Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thanks for the paper, which is very welcome. But just taking the baton from Councillor Parry, I think it is really important to understand what this is. So many of you will have seen the news report yesterday that National Grid has told us that they will need to spend around £60 billion to upgrade our electricity grid infrastructure. For two reasons. One is more home heating being delivered through electricity rather than gas. But the other one, and the principal one, is the demand for electric vehicle charging, £60 billion. This is just over £4.5 million of enabling funding to allow us to help organisations and individuals who want to install these charging points to be able to do so in an easier way. It is very welcome, but we just need to be very clear about what it is. The other thing I'll just mention, just for completeness, is let's not forget that EV is one part of that mix in terms of decarbonising transport, and the other really important part, particularly for larger vehicles and other modes of transport, is hydrogen, and much of the technology and manufacturing around that is being developed and rolled out here in this county as well. So this area is a hub for this, but it's important to be clear what this funding is about.
Thank you. I have real-world experience of installing charging points. I put 8 in at work, and they're pretty robust ones. They've got a lot of juice going through them. The only reason why we could put them in was because we had additional capacity in our transformer. Because as part of the expansion at work, we put a new transformer in. Just putting in a charging post isn't as straightforward as you might think. It does require sufficient capacity in the grid. But once it's in, the apps that you use are really, really straightforward. The one that I would recommend would be ZapMap. It tells you exactly where the charging points are, how much it costs, and what sort of size of the flow of the electricity through the charging point into your car and how long it will take to do a full charge. But we are a facilitator, and with that, back to Councillor Tagg and Councillor Williams for the recommendations, please.
Yeah, and I completely agree, Leader, and with Councillor Parry's thing. We are here to facilitate, and part of that was the fact that the DFT wouldn't release the money to anybody else but ourselves, but it will be to private business to both install, maintain and provide the funding to do that. So with the subsidy that the government have given us, we're hoping that it will be the case. Also the fact, as Councillor Philip White has said, the infrastructure underneath where the cables and the actual power supplies was part of this. We were made sure about that. And also the reason why, one of the big reasons why we went regional was also to make sure, as you said, Leader, when you're planning your journey from an electric vehicle, you'll be able to plan it from not only through Staffordshire, but from the adjoining areas that we've actually gone into partnership with. Therefore, I recommend that Cabinet A agrees to accept funding from the Department for Transport to enable the private sector to deliver public EV charging infrastructure in Staffordshire. B delegates the final decision to either remain in a local authority consortium with Midlands Connect or for Staffordshire County Council to procure an EV infrastructure partner independently to the Director for Economy, Infrastructure and Skills in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport and the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. C delegates the completion of any legal agreements associated with the installation of electric vehicle charge points, i.e. S50 and Staffordshire County Council private leases to the Directors for Economy, Infrastructure and Skills. And finally, D notes the Department for Transport focus for on-street charging infrastructure and the need to include a combination of off-street and on-street provision as a requirement for the local electrical vehicle infrastructure or Levi funding. I so move, Chairman.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item number 11 is Section 75 Agreement for Adult Social Care Assessment and Case Management and Occupational Therapy in Staffordshire, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox. Welcome to your first report at Cabinet, Councillor Wilcox. It's a complicated one. I've done a few of these over the years, but for members who perhaps have missed it, the size of this contract is very significant. And I would like to say before you get going, thank you to Councillor Jessel for all the work she did to get it to this point. Section 75 negotiations are always difficult, and you've got with you Mr. Jeps today, who's right at the heart of those negotiations and runs that part of the council really very well indeed for us. And thank you, Mr. Jeps and your team, for all the work you're doing. That's, of course, assuming that the Cabinet recommends your proposals, Councillor Wilcox. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader, and I'm reminded constantly of the big shoes I need to fill in relation to Councillor Jessel, of course, and yourself, Leader. So I'm in awe of both of you, and I look forward to the challenges that will come in the future. We have a hat-trick of reports to bring to you this morning, so I hope you're all sitting comfortably, and I'm watching the clock as I do this. But just to add to your comments, Leader, it's good to welcome Andrew Jeps, who's the Assistant Director for Care Commissioning, to be with us this morning in place of Dr Harding, who's elsewhere. So, Cabinet, we bring this morning the Section 75 Agreement for Adult Social Care Assessment and Case Management and Occupational Therapy in Staffordshire. We all know how important it is to continue to put people's needs at the heart of everything that we do in adult social care. We have a long-running successful partnership with Midland Partnership Foundation Trust, or as I shall refer to in the rest of the papers, MPFT. With MPFT, we can continue to put our residents' needs at the heart of everything we do and provide integrated health and social care services for those older people and those with needs be those physical disabilities or those living with mental health conditions. The Council's Section 75 agreement with MPFT is due to end in March 2025. Following a review, the report recommends that the Council commences a new Section 75 agreement with MPFT for a further 3 years from April 2025 to the 31st of March 2028, with the option to extend for a further 2 years until March 2030. The recommendations are listed in A to D, which I will return to later. So, what does the service provide? Adult social care assessments and case management services provided by MPFE delivers the Council's statutory duties for assessment of people's eligible needs, determination of an appropriate support plan, and the review of people with assessed eligible needs. It also provides professional support to prevent or reduce the need for care, including rehabilitation for people with sensory needs. Accessing individual mental capacity and making best interest assessments, and completing Mental Health Act assessments by approved mental health professionals known as AMHPS. Completing safeguarding inquiries and developing safeguarding plans. And finally, providing occupational health assessments to enable people to maximise their independence, an example being through the use of equipment. This Council has a legal agreement under Section 75 of the NHS Act 2006 to delegate these functions to MPFT. The partners have agreed in principle to the terms of the new arrangement, which will be for 3 years with an extension possibly taking up to March 2030. To review the current arrangements are within the report beginning at point 7 onwards. In addition to the Section 75 agreement, we have also separately commissioned a mental health floating support service by MPFT. This service is for those aged 16 plus who have low-level mental health conditions and support needs. The service, in essence, helps them stay independently and actively included in their social networks and community. This separate contract expires at the end of March 2024 at a cost of $300,000. Including this service within the new Section 75 agreement from April 2024 will streamline the governance and contract management arrangements. To include the mental health floating support service within the Section 75, we have had to consult with the Stafford and Stoke Integrated Care Board for their views, feedback, and from the consultation can be found in Appendix 3 of this report. So we shall be asking for a change control of the Section 75 agreement to transfer the existing mental floating support service contract with MPFT into the new Section 75 agreement. Unfortunately, colleagues, we are likely to see an increase in demand for adult social care services in line with the demographic needs of an ageing population. So we have agreed that an increasing demand will be managed within the existing resources through continue to develop more efficient processes. In the event that either demand increases or either partner considers that there is insufficient capacity to continue to deliver the service to the required quality and performance standards, we will meet again to agree how this will be jointly managed. Legal implications for the new 75 agreement are in this report at point 14 to 18. In conclusion, we and MPFT have completed a review of the current Section 75 agreement and have agreed that it remains suitable for the future and for the addition of the mental health floating support service. Partners have also agreed to the key principles of a new Section 75 agreement. Resource and value for money implications, including the current funding for 23, 24, 24 and 25 are set out within the report. Just to note, this Council will fund pay inflation up to 2%. There still remains a risk that pay inflation may exceed this percentage, and in this event, the partners would be required to manage the cost of this service within the available budget. Under climate change implications, you will be pleased to see that there are no changes to the service proposed. MPFT have also published a green plan and green strategy. The community impact assessment and the alternative options have been considered and are contained within points 29 to 32 together with the risk assessment. Chair, I will leave it at that for members to ask any questions before I go back to the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Just turn your microphone off. That was very well presented, and I was particularly taken by your warm words at the start of your presentation. Cabinet members take note. What? Councillor Parry.
I have to say, I thought he overdid it. But, yeah, thanks, Mike. Really clear report. I've just got a question, if I may. And being new in post, Andrew might be able to help us as well. What is the flexibility of the provider to be able to change either the volume or the quality or the delivery channels within the contract? And I was thinking about where it says that pay inflation is made up to 2% by us, and otherwise it's up to them. If there was a pay inflation that was significant in years, we've seen in recent years, would they be allowed to either reduce the volume or in some way change the delivery of the contract that would materially affect it? Or do we just mean they have to tighten their belts? Would we see any deterioration in the service provision or the volume of it?
Councillor Wilcox, by exception, I'll allow Mr Jeps to answer if you feel that might be add value.
Thank you, Leader. I was going to say at the outset, it's important that we don't have a deterioration of the services provided. And if there is an opportunity that inflation has gone up higher and they come back to us and say they cannot deliver the service within the agreed terms, then we will sit down with them and discuss that. But we do not want to see a reduction in level of the service or a deterioration of the service they provide to us. So we'll be keen to make sure that they stick to the funding that they have and they deliver within that parameters.
There are three variables in the Section 75. Volume, the number of people going through, acuity, which is the condition that they're in, and price. And I think the concern with the new Section 75 is the price is the one that's most at risk. We know pretty well what volume and acuity is because we can predict that to an extent. Councillor Wilcox, I'm just going to ask Mr Jeps if he could make a few comments on that, just to give us reassurance.
Those issues about price, quality and volume apply whether we manage and employ staff ourselves or through a partnership arrangement. This is a long, well-established partnership that continues to look at productivity and value for money. The partners have set out the way that they expect to be able to manage that within the Section 75 based on reasonable assumptions around pay inflation and around demography. If for any reason over the longer term those assumptions prove unsound, there's a well-established Cabinet to Trust board where such issues can be addressed and any remedies proposed. The option for an extension also allows a natural point to check whether those assumptions remain sound.
Thank you. Of course, councils aren't the only organisations under financial pressure. The Chief Executive and I have been in meetings this week where our colleagues in the NHS are also under some financial pressure. And so it's important that we understand precisely how we're going to absorb those price changes if they come. Given the point you've made about 2%, I suspect that will be a challenge as you move forward with this contract. Section 75s are notoriously complicated, and congratulations to you to be able to present your report so well this morning, Councillor Wilcox. Does anybody else have any questions? No. If you could take us to the recommendations then, please.
Thank you, Leader. So the recommendations are A, to note the progress with the current sector-defined agreement with MPFT. B, approve that the Council enter into a new Section 75 agreement with MPFT to continue to provide adult social care assessment and case management and occupational therapy in Staffordshire. C, to authorise completion of a change in control to the Section 75 agreement to transfer the existing medical health floating support service contract with MPFT into the Section 75 agreement. And finally, to authorise the Director of Health and Care and Director of Corporate Services in conjunction with the Cabinet Member for Health and Care to finalise and implement a Section 75 agreement for adult social care, assessment and case management and occupational therapy commencing the 1st of April 2025. I do so move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Agenda item 12 is the provision of apprenticeship services 2024, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. And I think I'm the intermission in between Councillor Wilcox's three items. Usually you have the first two acts, then the intermission, then the final one, but we'll forgive you for that on this occasion. But this is a very important item in itself, the provision of apprenticeship services and our contractual arrangements to procure the specific apprenticeship training provision that we need, both for our own employees here at the County Council, but also for employees of our grant-maintained schools. Now, apprenticeships are a big thing in Staffordshire. We had over 6,300 people start an apprenticeship in the county last year. And within the County Council, we spend £1.25 million on the apprenticeship levy to provide funding for this, which is used both by the County Council's employees and also by people in our grant-maintained schools. Now, I could do a fun quiz in terms of how many apprenticeship standards there are out there, how many things you can train to do as an apprentice, but time is short, so I'll tell you it's 689 different apprenticeship standards at the moment, with about another 70 in development, and crucially for our purposes here, the first training standard to train to be a teacher through the apprenticeship route, which I hope that our maintained schools will be very interested in taking up. I believe there is huge interest. So the way that we procure these these packages of training is incredibly important. To date, we've been using two established purchasing systems for that, which allow us, when we have somebody who wants to start an apprenticeship, to avoid an extremely time-consuming procurement process where we have to go out and seek tenders from training providers and assess those, and then procure a provider, which takes a long time and is inefficient. These arrangements allow us to take that from a trusted provider who's already been approved through that broader purchasing system. Unfortunately, the two systems we use are both coming to an end. The organisations that run them are discontinuing those. So the purpose of this paper is to gain approval to procure a new single purchasing source for these, which is the Crown Commercial Service. It's the largest purchasing mechanism for these. It's run by the government, and it is an extremely efficient and capable means of continuing to do this for the benefit both of our employees, but also the employees in our grant-maintained schools. I'm happy to answer any questions about this, but the paper outlines the detail quite well, so I'll leave things there, and then I can come back to the recommendations after questions, if that's all right with you, Leader.
Yeah, Councillor DeVille. Councillor Wilson, was there any compliments you wanted to make? Or no? No. Okay, Councillor DeVille.
Moving swiftly on, Chairman. Absolutely agree with these proposals. Thank you for bringing these today. I suppose, Chairman, as an ex-Staffordshire apprentice many years ago, a technical apprentice at JCB, this is music to my ears. And 6,300 apprenticeships started last year in Staffordshire. Fantastic, isn't it? Fantastic. And I think, Chairman, as this levy becomes more established, this can only really strengthen the important foundation for further growth of apprenticeships in Staffordshire. So great report, totally supported, and thank you for bringing it today.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. My second son benefited from an apprenticeship at an engineering company, and it set him up well. And they're a great way to get into the world of work. And for those people who choose not to go to university, it's a debt-free way to get into your adult life. Absolutely fantastic. Back with you, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. So the recommendations are that Cabinet gives approval to Council to join Crown Commercial Service Apprenticeship Training Dynamic Marketplace Framework RM6102 until April 2025, to renew this in April 2025, to consider whether it's appropriate transfer to the CCS new framework RM6303, which will be superseding RM6102 in April 2025, after considering the apprenticeship strategy that is currently being commissioned through People Services, and improve the Assistant Director for Skills and Employability be authorised to approve the award of contracts with training providers and the release of funds from the apprenticeship levy to fund training.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Agenda item number 13 is the Staffordshire's All-Age Carer Strategy 2024 to 2029, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Leader. Colleagues, we all either know or will have come across carers within our community who are looking after their loved ones to lead a healthier and more independent lives as possible. And we also know what an extraordinary contribution that they make today and every day. So it's really important that we as a county support them as far as we can and ultimately as long as they want us to. Just to give some context to this valuable unpaid work, the 2021 census reported that in Staffordshire, nearly 10%, that's 82,000 residents aged 5 and over, provide some unpaid care each week. A total of 66% of carers are aged over 50 and 58% of carers are women. There are also 1,610 young carers aged between 5 and 17. And to add to this statistic, 38% of those young carers told us through our survey that they struggle to balance their caring role with going to school. This new strategy has been co-produced by the Council and the ICB, the Integrated Care Board, including the provider of the care support service, Staffordshire Together for Carers, professionals and unpaid adults and young carers. Extensive feedback was obtained through an online and paper survey of adult carers, focus groups, families of carers, social care professionals in the Council and the MPFT, including the wider public. So we have listened and will now act upon building this strategy, which will also integrate the needs of our inspirational young carers to ensure we support their specific and unique needs. In total, 412 unpaid carers contributed their views, broken down into 379 adult carers, including parent carers and council employees who are carers themselves, and 20 young carers and 13 families of young carers, and a summary of their views can be found in Appendix 2. A draft copy of the strategy was presented to the Learning Disability and Autism Spectrum Condition Carers Forum on the 15th of January. The forum noted the strategic priorities and the process taken to reach them. They also commented that they felt success was dependent upon the co-production of the action plan in a timely manner. We also, Monday of this week, took the paper to Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their comments, and we have now received their recommendations, which I'd like to read out if I may. First of all, the committee recommended to the Cabinet Member for Health and Care that the strategy be circulated to head teachers via the Schools Forum once approved. I will ask the Cabinet Member for Children and Families to circulate the strategy to head teachers via the Schools Forum. Secondly, consideration be given for a mid-point review of the strategy to determine its effectiveness and maintain relevance. We will have an annual update to the Health and Wellbeing Board on the progress of this new strategy. The committee also requested current and historical metric data relating to carers. With that, we will provide the relevant data to the committee. The action plan associated with the all-age carer strategy to include target metrics. When the action plan is produced, it will be to implement the strategy, which will include relevant metrics, and these will be reviewed as part of the annual update. Details from the SSOT ICB as to whether prioritisation will be given to young carers needing mental health support. The committee will need to address this question to the SSOT ICB. And finally, a presentation of the new ICT platform to committee when it's been procured. We will arrange for a presentation of the new ICT platform to committee when it has produced. Those responses will go back to the chair of the committee. The strategy itself reflects policy and legislative requirements, as well as local strategies and local data and carers' feedback about their priorities, which are listed at point A to F, at point 7 of the papers. It also sets out the seven main priorities, each with associated outcomes and performance indicators, and again these are within the report at point 8 and 9, which gives the approach to achieving the outcomes. So, Cabinet are being asked to approve the strategy on behalf of the Council. The ICB will be considering the strategy through their own governance arrangements. The Health and Wellbeing Board have discussed this strategy at their meeting on the 7th of March and have endorsed it. Once approved by Cabinet, the new strategy will commence from April 2024. An action plan will be co-produced to support implementation. The Carers Partnership Board will oversee strategy implementation. This board will report directly into the Disability and Neurodiversity Partnership Board, which will be responsible for reporting progress annually to the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's worth noting that the finance team are anticipating the same level of funding for the delivery of the carers services from the Better Care Fund for future years. However, an inflation amount has not been confirmed for 24-25, and therefore we are not anticipating an uplift at this point. Other background documents with this report are enclosed at the end. So, Chair, I will finish and ask for any questions before I go back to the recommendations.
Councillor Sutton and Councillor Price. Councillor Price, a few words from you, if you don't mind, about the Schools Forum, because it will be you taking it to Schools Forum, I would think. But Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Wilcox, for that report. We have, I think, as a council, over the last few years, the last number of years, gone through a couple of different iterations of a strategy, and I'm glad that we've been able to now put one in place that really has listened to the voices of carers, and in particularly, and I won't use the word young carers, but I'll use the word children, because that's what they are. And we've listened to those voices, and in order to develop this strategy. And if you will indulge me, Leader, I just wanted to read out some of the comments in that in what we did and talking to young people about what those children have said to us. Things like, it does stop me doing things because I normally need to look after my two brothers as they are both disabled. I don't do much as I have to help my dad look after myself. Other children said things like, I just do it, I manage well. It is easy to manage, but others have said it is not hard and I just manage and get on with it. And others have said, I do not manage well. In the holiday, I care and help my mum and family. And on a school day, I have to do both before and after school. So some of those comments, and I think really brings home to you what these children do on a daily basis. And if this strategy helps us develop an action plan that helps some of these children have a normal childhood, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Leader.
Well said, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Price.
There's very little more I can add to that, really. I mean, that was exceptionally well said, Mark, and particularly highlights some of these children as well have their own health issues. So not only are they caring for their families, but themselves have particular issues within school and also impacts on their education as well. So we need to make sure that, aligned with our SEND strategy too, with some of these particular children, that we support them in that way. Obviously, I will be working with yourself closely, Councillor Wilcox, to make sure that we support those children in the way that they require it. And Councillor Sutton, and of course, we'll be working with Schools Forum as well to make sure that we highlight that. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much for this report. It's really sobering, isn't it, to hear that there are children in this county as young as 5 who are caring for others. They ought to be being cared for themselves. They are the unsung heroes of this county, aren't they? So for that reason, I'm absolutely delighted that you've brought this carer strategy to the forward here. I can't think of anyone better to take this forward. So thank you very much.
When we initially looked at carers across Staffordshire, it was striking, this was probably about 10 years ago, the contribution that unpaid carers make to the life of Staffordshire. People just getting on with stuff, looking after elderly relatives, looking after spouses, other relatives, children looking after parents. And without, this to Councillor Wilson's point, this is communities helping themselves and just getting on with it. But what we try to do is make sure that we've got in place a plan to help them. We mustn't forget that carers themselves need to be cared for. And this strategy points us towards how that help is going to be delivered. Councillor Perry, you did briefly indicate, and then I'm going to go back to Councillor Wilcox for summing up and recommendation.
And thanks for this, because it does highlight, as everyone said, the needs of those people, particularly young people, but not especially, particularly young people who have daily challenges and deserve our help and need our help. And this sets out, if you like, the intent. What I'm really interested in is the how and the thing that's got pound signs by it and resources by it that is actually going to go in there and make a difference and provide the support that they need. Very short aside, and I'm sure this is trivial really, but just currently reading the J.K. Rowling book, not Harry Potter, I've never read a Harry Potter, but this is called, I think it's called Casual Vacancy. But it does describe the daily life of a young carer with all the compensations that they have to make for the absence of normality in their life, of getting themselves and their siblings to school or wherever, and how they have to make things up and work things out in a way that would be completely foreign to the rest of us and to our life. And it's all often under the radar, unless you work in social care. People don't realise what people go through on a daily basis. And I think that's important for us to, first of all, recognise it, analyse it and assess it, which is what the strategy has done, listened, and then prepared to say, well, actually, this is our intent, this is how we think we can fix this. Once that's presumably nailed by all the parties, hopefully that action plan will come back. And I think it's our duty as Cabinet to actually get that behind the 8 ball. That's where the action is, and that's where I think we need to focus.
Councillor Wilcox, if you could sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm absolutely determined that once the action plan is put together, that we deliver on the action plan. It cannot just be the case that we make a phone call to these people asking them how they are during the week. We have to do more than that. We have to be there. We have to be in their presence, particularly with the young children. Children need to be children. We need to make sure the respite care is in there so that they can be children. And I will make sure that the action plan delivers on that. Otherwise, the strategy will be a complete waste of time. The action plan is paramount to us delivering this. And I am determined to make sure that I've been absolutely touched by this report about all the work that our carers do. And we will all know carers in our own community. And we do have to give them the support because they contribute such a lot to the well-being of our communities. So you can rest assured that the action plan will have teeth. We will review it regularly and we'll make sure that it's delivering on, particularly around the young children, to make sure that they can act as young children. So there's only one recommendation, Chair, and that is to approve the Staffordshire All-Age Carer Strategy 24 to 2029. So moved.
All those in favour?
Agreed.
And that is unanimous. Agenda item 14, extension to the dynamic purchasing system agreement for the supply of residential and nursing care home placements. Councillor Wilcox, whilst we are absolutely thrilled to have you in Cabinet, we are testing to destruction the concept of having too much of a good thing. So I'm looking forward to agenda item 14 and what you have to tell us about the dynamic purchasing system. Councillor Wilcox, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. I thought I'd left the longest report to the end, but obviously not. So, Cabinet, extension to the dynamic purchasing system agreement for the supply of residential and nursing care home placements. Colleagues, when our residents are no longer able to live safely and independently, it's really important that we are able to act in a timely manner to find a suitable place for our residents, some of which are among the most vulnerable within our communities into a suitable care facility that they can call home. Having a care market that is contracted with the council ensures quality of care and capacity that it is available to meet the needs of the people we support. We currently support 3,392 adults to manage their assessed eligible social care needs in a care home, and these can be seen in Table 1 of the report. And we procure these placements using a dynamic purchasing system, DPS. We are in the process of developing a new commissioning model for care homes, including a new care contract, together with new arrangements for procurement and a suitable, sustainable pricing strategy. Whilst this is being developed, we are asking that Cabinet approve an extension to the existing DPS until September 2025, which will allow time for the new commissioning model to be completed and implemented. Our strategic objectives in this area are firstly to improve the quality of care homes in Staffordshire, ensure timely access to care home placements when required, and to establish that a fair cost for these placements that ensures the sustainability for the market, value for money and taxpayers, and a balanced budget. Our ability to source and place residents into care homes in a timely manner is good, with most lots within the target of 75% sourced within the timescale in recent months, as shown in Table 2 of the report. It will not be of any surprise to see that the average cost of care home placements is rising as a consequence of both planned and unplanned fee uplifts for older people's placements, as shown in Table 3 of the report. So the DPS system is used for both individual placements and blocked book beds. The DPS runs until the 31st of March 2024. It all goes well and Cabinet support this new plan over the summer. It is hoped that it will be implemented between April and October 2025. This is why we are seeking extension to the current DPS to the end of September 2025. The Council commissioned Health Watch Staffordshire to conduct an engagement piece with care home residents as well as their families and carers and staff to inform the commissioning plan. The Council also held a number of engagement events, and the key themes identified will also support the development of the care home commissioning plan. Under value for money, the expected gross expenditure on care home placements for 23-24 is in the region of 210 million. The extension to the DPS will allow ongoing competitive process for making individual care home placements to support best value, as well as allowing the block book base to be expanded. I will leave at that stage, Chairman, for any questions before I go back to the recommendations on the report.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. It's a very technical issue, this, and we've been doing dynamic purchasing for some time. It is the most efficient way of us securing places for residents that need it, and the extension is very welcome. So there is nobody indicating, so if you give us the recommendations, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendations are: A, approve an extension to the Council dynamic purchasing system for adult care home placements, and B, to note that a new commissioning model for care homes is in the final stages of development, and ask that this is brought to Cabinet for consideration in summer 2024. I so move.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Agenda item number 15 is the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. As we know, the government took the decision in August of last year to discontinue the local enterprise partnerships around the country and to transfer their key business growth and business representative functions to top-tier local authorities such as Staffordshire County Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council for the Stoke and Staffordshire LEP area. This paper is to deal with the consequences of that in two crucial respects. So the first is regarding the governance around how we'll continue to provide the most important services of the LEP. Those are the Growth Hub, which provides tailored business advice to the small and medium enterprises in Staffordshire, which as we all know, make up the overwhelming majority of our businesses and particularly our high growth businesses. Secondly, the continuation of the Careers Hub, which provides advice to people of all ages to help them find the right jobs for them and the skills that they require to do them. And then finally, our newly established local visitor economy partnership. This is our tourist board effectively, but a very important new initiative from Visit England that's identified the most important tourism economies in the country to give them a seat at the table in national decision making around travel and tourism. And Staffordshire has one of these, which needs to continue to function and be funded. So the governance arrangements around those, and secondly, the transfer of the reserves of the LEP to the County Council to provide contingencies for funding these services. So the first thing that I will say before I talk about those arrangements is just a very big thank you to everybody who's been involved with the LEP over the last decade, both the employees of the LEP and also all of the people who volunteered to sit on it, including a number of people around this table. It's provided an enormously valuable function, and they go on to do what they are going to do in the future, with our thanks for that. In terms of the governance of these services, now that they will sit with the County Council and the City Council, we're proposing the establishment of a joint enterprise delivery committee, which will comprise of 2 members from each of the 2 authorities. So from this authority, it will be myself and the leader of the council, and then 2 representatives appointed by Stoke-on-Trent City Council. That is to provide that democratic oversight, and for you and the Cabinet at Stoke-on-Trent City Council to be confident that we're delivering these services in an effective manner. The delivery of those services will principally vest within the business and enterprise team at this authority. We've agreed with Stoke-on-Trent City Council that given that the majority of the population and the economy that we're serving sits within the county area, that's the most efficient way to do this. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the 3 key areas that we will be delivering with the oversight of that joint committee are the Growth Hub, the Careers and Enterprise, the Careers Service, and the Local Visitor Economy Partnership. In terms of the funding, we are proposing that the reserves of the LEP are transferred to this authority and are to be earmarked for supporting those services. I'll provide the detail of the allocation of that when I read the recommendations, because I think it'd be unnecessary to do it twice, given there are rather a lot of recommendations. But that is the essence of the paper. Very happy to answer any questions that anybody may have before I dive into those recommendations.
Councillor Tagg, now you were at the start and the end of the LEP, so that's quite a claim to fame.
Well, I missed a few years in between, but I was at the beginning and the end. So I think, yeah, the LEP has come to an end, and there's those legacy items that need to be, ensure that we do continue to spend that money correctly, and we help businesses and the growth and the economic growth of the county and the city within those parameters. The only question is, of course, does this report into the Leaders Board? Because I'm thinking we are obviously redoing the terms of reference for the Leaders Board to integrate obviously the LEP into it. Yeah. But of course this is just a county and a city committee, well of course the previous LEP had district members as well on there. So I think feedback through to the Leaders Board in the new terms of reference for the Leaders Board would, I think, help districts and boroughs to probably have a just a check on what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's an entirely reasonable request, actually, Councillor Tagg, and thank you for raising that. I'll pick that up with Mr Tradewell in due course for the terms of reference for the Leaders Board. Councillor White, you've got the most extensive list of recommendations. I think it runs to 2 to 3 pages, doesn't it? So everybody strap in. Here we go. The recommendations.
I'll try to do it quickly. Just one further point relating to your question, Councillor Tagg. This is about the handling of money fundamentally. This is the oversight to make sure that we're spending public money in an effective manner. I think the Leaders Board matter you can consider as council leaders. The other thing that's important to say is that we will also be setting up a business representative board to take on those functions of the LEP as well, but that's not considered in this paper. So lots more work to do in this area, but those core service functions that the LEP delivers will be efficiently transferred and regulated through the recommendations that I'm now going to dive into. Colleagues, I recommend that Cabinet A endorses the approach to form a joint enterprise delivery committee with Stoke-on-Trent City Council, the quote, joint committee, agrees the terms of reference for the joint committee, agrees to appoint the leader of the council and the deputy leader and cabinet member for economy and skills to the joint committee, delegates all necessary authority to the Assistant Director for Skills and Employability in respect of transferring the Careers Hub to Staffordshire County Council as the accountable body, delegates authority to the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Corporate Services to sign the Asset Transfer Agreement to formally transfer the Stoke and Staffordshire LEP reserves to Staffordshire County Council as the accountable body for the LEP, with the reserves to be managed through the joint committee. Once the Stoke and Staffordshire LEP reserves are formally transferred to Staffordshire County Council as accountable body, Cabinet agrees that the following funds are immediately ring-fenced, subject to Cabinet approval at Stoke-on-Trent City Council for the following purposes. Firstly, Stoke and Staffordshire LEP reserves of £298,250 and £425,934 are allocated to the Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Growth Hub and the Careers Hub, respectively, as a rolling contingency, therefore allowing an additional year of these services to be funded should national grants not be provided in the 2025-2026 financial year or any subsequent year. And finally, that Stoke and Staffordshire LEP reserves of £324,130 are allocated to be spent on the establishment and work programme of the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Local Visitor Economy Partnership. Thank you, Leader.
Did everybody get that? Again?
Happy to repeat it.
Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 16 is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. Just the one which is by the Cabinet Member for Education and Special Educational Needs in approving the admission arrangements relating to admissions to community and voluntary controlled schools. Councillor Price, if you'd just like to say a couple of words about that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Obviously, we have a statutory duty around this to have a policy in place, and this is reviewed generally on an annual basis. Sometimes there's minor tweaks to the admissions policy if particularly government legislation changes. But as a general rule, it's pretty much the same as the previous one that we okayed. Academies, of course, have their own admissions policy, but generally fall in line and work with us. It's quite nice to see this on today's paper as well, because that supports the work we're doing around school admissions policy and the work that the admissions team are doing to make sure that we've got children going to their nearest school where possible. That also supports our transport policy as well, so they all tie in quite neatly. And then following on from that, of course, the work that we discussed earlier in this meeting when we talked about the Capital Schools programme also makes sure, working with our admissions policy, that we can keep children in their locality as well, and that parents have that choice to have their first choice school where preferable, or at least their top 3 schools. And as mentioned earlier, we're about 99% with that at the moment, so we do a really, really good job. And you were talking earlier as well about birth rates. So the admissions team can work out house building, how the average on a birth rate. So obviously there is some movement between areas, but generally they can identify where they're going to have children 3-4 years down the line and how many places they'll require. And it's quite a fine art. And I challenged them previously on this and said, how can you be sure it'd be accurate? And looking at the track record over the past years, they've been pretty spot on with this. So it's really, really good to see. So a phenomenal amount of work goes on behind the scenes that you just don't see. And when a parent applies for a school place, they just assume I'll have the local school down the road, but they just don't know the work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that that place is available for their child, and so they can keep them in the local area. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you, very helpful. Agenda item number 17 is the forward plan of key decisions. The following in April, in public, the Integrated Performance Report, Q4, brought to you by myself. In private, the review of local authority social care case management systems, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care and the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Also in private in April is the unregulated placement update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Moving forward to May in public, the procurement for garden waste disposal framework, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters and the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. Also in May in public, the roofing framework agreement. That's a bit of a sizzler, isn't it?
No ceiling to this opportunity, Chairman.
Just too good, really. Too good. Also in May, I've quite lost my momentum now. In public, the Community Learning Accountability Agreement 24-25, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. Moving forward to June, Supported Living Commissioning Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. In public in June, the final financial outturn 23-24, brought to you by myself and the Cabinet Member for Finance. Moving forward to July, the Digital Innovation Strategy for Staffordshire County Council, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. And then also in July in public, Children and Young People's Emotional Health and Wellbeing Service, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. That is the forward plan. Agenda item 18 is the exclusion of the public. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below.